All right, let's focus on local government politics now, and new metro mayoral committees in Gauteng will remain a mystery, for now at least. Parties in coalitions met last night to discuss who will be handling which portfolio. Action South Africa is demanding control of utilities, settlements and roads in Tshwane and Johannesburg. But the Democratic Alliance seems to be digging in its heels. Let's go live now to eNCA's Govan Whittles, who is tracking that story for us. And Govan, so there's been this criticism that says, about 2 weeks since the new governments were formed in the metros, we are yet to have fully functional governments in these metros with clear lines of responsibility for the various MMCs. Any update from yesterday's meeting?
Yeah, well, it looks like those deadlocks that happened in the respective metros in Gauteng just after the mayoral elections have happened once again. But this time it looks like the Democratic Alliance is ready to proceed, even if it means forming a minority government. And Tilos, they did say at the unveiling of all their mayors that they're anticipating having to form these minority governments, and their strategy would be to try and work towards making that minority government a majority government by persuading more people. And last night that started happening. It's going to happen again this afternoon. We know for sure that the Patriotic Alliance has now walked away from the coalition talks with the DA. The PA had demanded mayoral seats that the DA wasn't willing to give them in Ekurhuleni and in Johannesburg. And they said that they made the same demands of the ANC. Remember, they went into that contract with the ANC, the power sharing agreement, and the DA wouldn't give it to them, so they've walked away. And that puts the DA on track to form a coalition with the Action SA, Herman Mashaba's party, who we understand will take a deal, even if it's not what they wanted in the first place, but they are ready to govern alongside the DA, as well as the ACDP, the Freedom Front Plus, and the IFP, a number of small other parties. Al Jamaa also having a caucus this weekend to decide its approach towards the opportunity to work with the DA. And then all of this hangs on the EFF's votes in council to listen, whether or not they will give them those votes to pass those necessary important budgets and other motions that are brought before the council.
But as things stand, Govan, it looks like the impasse is so intractable such that the DA is realistically now starting to look at this situation as a situation where they will have minority governments, where they will have the leadership teams drawn from just the DA and hoping for the best, that every time they need the supporting vote in council, they will have enough goodwill from the other political parties?
That they will be able to also convince individual councillors, but they may be able to still form majorities if they're willing to give up more power. There also seems to be a bit of hesitation towards acceding to the Action SA's demands, which include control of important portfolios in all three of the cities. And Action SA at the moment does seem to have the bargaining power, but with the DA ready to go into minority governments, and John Steenhuisen and Helen Zille already implicitly stating that they wouldn't hesitate to go back to the opposition benches if what was required was a sacrifice of what they believe is their values. So with that in mind, Action SA may be willing to settle for less and help the DA try to achieve that majority, even if they start with the minority government. And all indications are that the talks won't stop, that the DA will try to convince more people. But the PA has already withdrawn, and now it will be up to the DA's ability to sort of coalesce all the smaller parties and have them stay on side for the duration of the term in a more formal agreement.
It makes sense, doesn't it, Govan, that if you are going to be party to any governance arrangement, you want to put your best foot forward. So therefore, given a choice of the various portfolios, you would want to be the person who is seen to be fixing city power. You would want to be the person who's heading up Joburg Roads Agency, and the delivery is impactful and visible to the voters. And so that in future you can say, as Herman Mashaba was able to say recently during the election campaign, that when I ran this, I was able to run it better.
Exactly, and they're afraid that Herman Mashaba might use this term with important portfolios to get Action SA's movement beyond the areas where they've had a lot of PR votes into terrain where they're winning significant wards, particularly in these metros. Herman Mashaba managed to gain a lot of traction in Johannesburg. It looks like Tula Sizwe that he will be one of the main forerunners for the premier position in the 2024 elections, and what we're likely to see is his candidature start emerging. And then we have understood more recently that the Democratic Alliance may be leaning towards having Bongani Baloyi be their runner in Gauteng for the premier position. With that in mind, you can understand the hesitancy in these negotiations, and perhaps what we may see is a constant ad hoc changes to the coalition partners as the term progresses, as the DA at least manages its way towards the next national and provincial election, where it will be hoping to consolidate support in strategic areas while hoping to limit Action SA's influence in its traditional voter base.
Very quickly, Govan, in all of this, we are starting to see the ANC performing that role of official opposition in metros it ran just yesterday, with now talk, for instance, of the potential for litigation against some of these leading parties, the DA. In Ekurhuleni, for example, there's that talk, and as well as the pressure that is being put against the DA in the city of Joburg.
Yeah, and we know from the tenure of Kgosi Mahepa in Tshwane that the ANC in opposition in these metros is able to cause a lot of instability, but at the same time influence a lot of decisions in how the city gets run. Just look at the number of scandals that have emerged in Tshwane, and Mzwandile Masina right out the gate in a similar position, pointing out that the Johannesburg and Ekurhuleni mayors of the Democratic Alliance had incorrectly issued instructions regarding a moratorium on the extension of contracts, as well as filling of vacant positions and reversing some decisions which they believe are the purview of the council. So Mzwandile Masina would be an effective opposition leader in Ekurhuleni, but he's still hoping to get control of the city, saying that they're wooing the DA's coalition partners that are unhappy, but realistically, Tula Sizwe, the EFF and the ANC's relationship has broken down, so that'll be very difficult.
Yeah. All right, I've got to thank you for that. That's eNCA's Govan Whittles. He's tracking those negotiations and arrangements that are being finalized around coalition governments that are being formed in various, hopefully being formed in various metro councils in Gauteng.